I don't know, getting skill gapped again.
Mm-hmm. It happens. Such is the nature of melee.
It's just like I have like a right now I have this bloodlust to beat the people above me,
Mm-hmm.
and I just like whenever I play someone I usually don't find myself losing to anyone under the NorCal PR, um, unless I'm having a shit day, and
Yeah.
sometimes I'll nature of being a space animal is like
Yeah.
you'll
Sometimes
lose
you
to
just
a
get
Marth
dogged
player
on.
here and there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sometimes a Marth player catches a lucky break.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm like, yeah, I'm just like, I want to figure out like I've been so the focus of my hold on one sec.
Yeah.
I'm
Take your
getting a
time.
call from my mother. Give me like 1 minute.
Okay.
Right. Anyway, as I was saying, sorry about that. That was a
No,
little unexpected.
you're good.
Um, I am tired of getting skill capped. I've for past few days I've been spending an hour and a half solo practicing before I even play the game.
Nice.
Um, but I still feel like my improvement rate isn't fast enough.
Okay.
And that may partially be due to like being uncomfortable with some of the parts of Uncle Punch. Although I feel like I've mastered more of the like I can jump into Uncle Punch and be like, okay, I want to practice this particular save state on this DI after this follow up,
Yeah.
and I can do that all fine and dandy. But then I have trouble with like I want to practice like just edge guarding, just making save states for edge guarding over and over and over again because that's where I'm getting skill gapped a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like or like the low hanging fruit. I'm even like even though like I find myself trying to practice the low hanging fruit, the stuff that I see in my replays that I'm missing, and then practicing that, but not practicing enough of them efficiently.
Yeah, yeah, that makes sense. Um, I think that if you're going through solo practice and you're trying to do like things that you see yourself mess up, and you're like actually going through the process instead of just like loading it up, I think at that point, if you feel like I guess when you play, you said this was the case for some of the things, but do you feel like that when you play after solo practicing that the things that you practiced aren't going better? Like what's the relevance of like solo practicing in that regard?
Well, for me, I'm just trying to make sure that, like, for example, reaction tech chasing with dash back up smash, that all of these things that if I flub once, I'm missing an entire, I'm losing, like, and it, like, I'm losing, like, my opening per skill kill stat increases significantly because I missed this low hanging fruit.
Mm-hmm.
That's the significance. But, like, I don't find myself, I guess that's not really, like, I guess I'm just struggling with, like, I don't. Let me think.
Yeah, take your time.
Let me think about this. I don't have a good enough grasp. Like I've been trying to practice it, recognizing intent, and like some of the things that I practice are a little like the space that I take operating and practicing they kind of like clash. Like, oh, I want to practice punish game, but at the same time, I also want to practice like making sure I understand what my opponent wants to do and like properly establishing a game plan in time.
Yeah.
But like, there's like, I feel like all of these things I just like I reach a certain level of play. Before that level of play, none of it matters. I can just hit them a little harder, and then they'll be shook and lose. And then
Mm-hmm.
I reach like literally right after that level, I run into your salts, your bobbies of the world, and I can't do that anymore, and it's frustrating.
Yeah. I think that makes sense. Yeah, I mean, there is a point in melee where it. I mean, this is. I mean, I guess for the entirety of your improving melee, it is the case that like you are going to be learning things more fundamental to playing the game well outside of combos, neutral related things, scramble related things, etc., like mix ups. But that punish will be more valuable. But I think that like um, I guess the thoughts that I have are like when you feel like you are hitting a wall or you're playing against people who are doing things that just beat you, or something's going wrong and you're losing. I think it is important to like sit down and try and or not realize, think about like what the differences are, because it's easy to be like, okay, well,
The
yeah.
big difference. So I've had this conversation with Cactus as well, and he said the big difference. He was playing Geo the other day before he was playing me, and the big thing is that I don't try different things. Like I'm not trying to like got him. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I just don't know how to do that. I think that might have to just be with like I just have a lack of multiple game plans. I don't know. I want
um
that's
that okay, that is
like having two or three different like I only have one usually at least at currently I'm working on this right now. I'm working on having two or three different routes for each like reaction point, right?
mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, oh, I got an opening here. There's two different like oh, the fox, I got an up throw at 30% and the fox is DIing out. Oh, here I could dash back and near him, or I could do wave dash back up tilt, up tilt, up tilt. Which one is more of an execution barrier? Which one is the higher risk, etc. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
that's really hard against better people.
Yeah, I agree. I guess I feel like what Cactuar said made sense in a vacuum. Um, but I think one thing that is important to realize is that he was specifically referring to it in like a neutral sense. Like, what
Right.
are the different decisions you make within, maybe even a set given mix up that you would be playing out? And that's the relevant part. Combos are more set in stone. You're going to do the same
Right.
thing every single time in every single position, as long
This
as
is
there isn't like an explicit like
the
value
combos
giveaway.
are there for you if you when you grind hundreds of thousands of hours of muscle memory. That's what the combos are there for.
Yeah, and I
You're
think
relying on your game information and awareness of your opponent in neutral, and
yeah,
that's something that it's such a struggle for me,
yeah,
and I
and
can't quite grasp why.
I mean, I think it's hard. There's a lot to learn about it. There's so many different ways things could happen. It's inherently varied. It's just hard, but
Like I feel like my game information about like I have good information about pretty much all the top tiers. I feel like if given like I can give you an educated like like if we watched a set and I told and like just two random top Fox players, I could tell you after watching like 3 minutes of gameplay, I could tell you, oh, here's this person's game plan and this person's game plan, and this is why this person's game plan is beating this person's game plan. But I can't do that mid set.
hmm. For well, I guess for what it's worth is like I think that with my idea of melee is like game plans are things that like are more like overarching. It's like the game plan is like the collection of everything, and that means
It's abstract.
or it's not that's abstract. It's that it's the gestalt. It is everything.
Okay.
That is the collection of all the decisions that you make that equal the game plan, and thus that
Right.
means that like okay, you could see what the game plan is generally, but are you able to sit there and I point out a random situation? I could not pay attention for 20 minutes and then pick a single random situation I see, and you could tell me in explicit detail what were the implications of that situation? What were the other ways it could play out? Why did it play out the way it is? And like, tell me all the qualities of any given random situation. That's like the part that I feel like you're missing
of the game.
Yeah,
right?
I think because like
okay,
you can do stuff with like building up game plans. That's really good, and you have to do that. But you have to supplement that knowledge of game plans with deep understanding of the situations that happen within it. And so I guess that means that like if you feel like you're struggling currently, to go back to what Cactar said, where it's like he has more ways of doing things. Essentially, what he's saying is when he plays or when there's a specific mix-up that comes up, common mix-ups, there's a ton of them.
Right.
Geo has a higher variance in the decisions he makes within those mix-ups. And that is like what provides value, because mix-ups, since they're unreactable, the wider variety of accurate things you can do, the more things that your opponent has to be aware of, /play around, / judge the risk reward of, etc., etc. It's like,
so yeah. Would you say rule 1 is acknowledge what is and isn't reactable?
That's like, yeah, I guess that's like a rule 1 of melee in general. Yeah. Understanding what is and what isn't a mix-up.
And that's, so for the big one, the big case that comes to mind, and just for anyone, is Falcon run-up grab. Right?
Yeah.
A lot of new players struggle with acknowledging that when Falcon is in front of you, if he's close to the zone, you're in the threat range of the run-up grab that you will not ever be able to react to at that distance.
Yeah.
But yeah, okay. All right, and that makes a little more sense.
Yeah, and it's like once you, I guess, to start from like the absolute basics, you establish the character's effective threat range, which to define it means the exact point at which a hitbox would come out that would be unreactable in a way that you cannot defend against. And so I think that there's characters like, Fox Running Shine, for example, like, yeah, or like the fastest Running Shine Fox does possible is
unreactable.
Yeah, that's like that's a threat range of his.
But you can react to the dash in.
Yeah, that's the whole thing. You react to the dash. Like, what makes it unreactable is that even if you see him dash, you can't know that, like, he could hit you before you see him dash.
Right, because he could short hop after he dashes, or he could, right?
It's not that he can do something different. It's that if he dashes and running shines, if you are sitting there staring at him, you will not see him do anything before he hits you.
Right.
That's what a threat range is. It is like, if he does a thing, you will not be able to tell what it is before it has already hit you.
Do a thing without you being able to tell what the thing is.
Yeah, that's like a threat range. Now, if we're talking about effective threat range, that concept is a bit more advanced to where, will the thing that they do to hit you, do you have a thing that you could do to stop it beforehand? So, like, there's like, or do you not have that? And so, like, an effective threat range, for example, is like, if you are, I think an example that would work is like, Marth doing, let's say that you're like,
wait, can you give me a more can you track back one step? So character threat range, can they do a thing without being able to tell what the thing is? And then effective threat range, what's the elaboration on that?
Yeah, I guess effective threat range, the difference is that so threat range in general is the idea that like their thing hits before 15 frames, essentially. That's right. But like effective threat range is, will their thing hit before you can actually defend against it, given your character's toolkit? So, for example, using like,
can you defend against hypothetical hit given your character's toolkit?
Yeah, and so it's like a good example of this that I like is, let's say you're a Fox and you're right outside the range of a Marth Tipper forward smash, and he decides to dash attack, or he like, let's say that you're like further back. And like he decides to dash attack. Technically, him doing dash and dash attack is a 14 frame action or a 16 frame action, which means you could react to it technically. But if you try and dash back, you can't actually get out of the way of it. So that means that his
dash attack. So you're talking about reacting
Marth, yes. So we're saying
reacting to to dash attack, but this is in theory, and just because you can react to it in theory doesn't mean you're going to perfectly react to it in practice.
Well, no, the difference is that the separation that I'm trying to make between the two is that if the Marth dash attacks, you see him dash, he has to dash for 4 frames, and then he starts his dash attack, which is 12 frames, if I remember correctly. The sentiment is that, sure, it is 16 frames long, but if you try and dash back from the spot, assuming that you're at the range where tip or dash type would hit, you would still get hit regardless because your dash back does not move back fast enough, right? And so that is like a representation of effective threat range where like the thing that you do to defend against it isn't fast enough to actually like function within the allotted time frame. So even though it's 16 frames, you need more time. So that's like the effective.
You're already reacting to the dash attack, which takes time to react to, and because you're reacting to it, it's not actually 16 frames for you.
Well, it's that you're doing something. You can react to it. It's that you have to do something in the game that takes time, and that will like stop you from moving or something of that nature, right? Does that like? It's the fact it's the fact that the thing you do that you would avoid it takes time, and thus, even though you can't technically react to it, your allotted, like the threat range associated with it is actually larger than it was before because you need more space to comfortably do the thing, right?
So let me, I'm going to write this down. This is the way I'm writing it. The thing you do to avoid something takes time, which means even though that you are technically reacting to that thing, to do it comfortably is,
well, to do it in a way that you wouldn't get hit, you'd have to,
doing it in a way that makes sure you do not get hit. How do I phrase this? It adds to the amount of time, or it makes the reaction point you need to set even earlier.
It makes the threat range larger. That's the relevant because you need more space, right?
Makes their threat range right.
And so it's like.
And that's kind of the dilemma with forward smash that new players have, right? It's like they're unaware of even though it's easily reactable and they do react to it, they fail to mitigate the disjoint.
Yeah, there's things like that. Yeah, it's like, or like they're like, oh, I'm dashing back, I can get hit here, but it's like their threat range is larger because there's just like things like that is like how it functions, where it's like the fun like. The position that you're in and how you defend against it slightly changes how like what their threat range actually is, just because there are other factors within it that like affect it. And like you could always
and that
define
concept it. Basically defines the neutral game in Melee, right?
Yeah, you want to be aware of people's effective threat ranges when they actually can hit you from any given point, and those are the ways that you start judging. Like, I'm inside this person's threat range, I have to play a mix-up. I'm at this point in it, I can do these things, etc., etc. Right?
Okay. All right, that makes a little more sense. I mean, like, so then learning to, like, when two players are feeling each other out at the top level, they're trying to figure out, oh, well, what is this person's threat range? Where does this person like to put their moves out?
Well, that's a different thing. Threat ranges are consistent between every character has a threat range, and that is static. Their threat range is static, right? Because the character can only do so much. It doesn't matter who's playing them. If we're going to define the threat range within the context of an action that is, unreactable before it hits you, right? They're the point at which they can hit you in a way that's unreactable would be a threat range. Then it is consistent regardless of who's holding a character. And Marth forward smashing you as a two-year-old clicking right on the C-stick is the same amount of unreactable as Armada doing it, right? Like, that's just true.
I see what you're saying, right? Like, if they do the thing is going to happen, and objectively, if you're in the range of the thing, you're going to get hit by the thing.
Yeah, and so the sentiment is that you understand these qualities of each character perfectly before going into the match, and that will guide how you judge situations. For example, Marth has a larger threat range than Fox. We understand that Marth's threat range is X thing, and Fox's threat range is X thing, and thus we would function in a way that would either
we play around the range.
Yeah, we put ourselves outside of it, so we're safe. And if we do go inside of it, it would be in a way that makes Fox's threat range also active.
One specific example of this concept that I literally am just thinking about last night is like running shield against Marth, right? Like calling out a Marth trying to approach you and this was a tool that I recently realized, like, wow, oh wait, Fox can just straight up call out Marth for dashing forward, just like Marth can call out Fox for dashing forward with down tilt. It blew my mind, but like this makes more sense. I think that explains why, right? Like the effective range, they whiff something, or they try to, or you preemptively do something while they are doing something in startup, right?
Yeah. And that puts you inside puts them inside your threat range. So that's what makes running shield work, is that you get to run forward and then you shield and you have the ground, you're sliding on the ground and that moves you forward or whatever. And then effectively what you want to do is you want them to end up inside your threat range or whatever. And that's a core factor of Melee where it's like, I want to play at a point to either, I want to safely transition into my opponent's threat range, or not into my opponent's threat range, I want to safely transition into a way where I have my opponent within my threat range so I can make decisions, right? Because if your things, like, if it's outside your threat range, it's reactable, and thus has less inherent value, right?
So objective threat range is does not vary from character to character, but effective threat range that varies from player to player, right?
The effective threat range varies from situation to situation.
Right. Okay.
Because there are aspects in Melee that change what, like, it's like if you are, I guess, for example, I think maybe calling it threat range might not be necessarily the best way to put it, but it's a sentiment that, like,
no, I like the idea that threat range is a very like connotates the idea that someone can do something that is punishable.
Yeah.
And that is within that area. And threat range, yeah, I agree, it's a little
I think that if I were to, like, give an example that would, like, make it more clear is that if you are, let's assume you're going into a situation and you're frame neutral. The threat range at that, if you're frame neutral and you're both active, that is like the objective threat range or whatever. That's the threat range that exists regardless. That is just the case. But then there's spots where, like, say you're -2, you're -2, yeah, in terms of frame advantage, the way, like, it is not necessarily that, like, they hit, I guess. Sometimes they do hit further, but sometimes they can't hit further. It's that you can't, like, you are, what's it called? You cannot escape it, right? Like, I don't know how to explain it in the sense that, like, it, like, doesn't necessarily get farther, but it is that you, it is, I guess, I mean, it's just that their action is 2 frames faster, or there's whatever amount of frame advantage faster if you're negative.
You putting yourself in lag gives them more time.
Yeah, and that, like, has effects on frame advantage as well as other things. Not frame advantage, threat range.
Yourself in lag gives your opponent more leniency for a punish.
Yeah, and that's not to, like, it's not really even worth extrapolating off of. It's more the sentiment that, like, Melee is varying and situations have, like, inherent qualities that you have to abide to, like, you know, make decisions. Because you being +0 and you being -2 are explicitly different situations that you have to play differently, and that's kind of the sentiment of, like, effective threat range versus, like, raw threat range. I think the concept is missing a few pieces. / I explained it kind of awkwardly at some points, but, like, the sentiment is there in the sense that there is just threat range where the character can only hit so far. Like, Marth's forward smash only hits a certain point, or, like, him doing dash attack, which is, like, his furthest reaching forward unreactable thing, only hits a certain point. Right.
So the sentiment is that a character can only hit so far given a certain position.
Yeah, they can only, like, a character has a max threat range. Like, there's going to be a point where if they try and do anything, you can just press the shield button and it won't work.
Where they can try. That's important. That's really big. Where they can do anything and you can press shield and it won't work.
Yeah, that is, like,
how... And that's like for example, characters like Sheik, like they abuse the shit out of that, right? Just having a big ass shield makes it so that, like, even though your threat range is, like, basically grab, dash attack, right? Fair.
Right? Oh, like, well, the shield isn't the only relevant part of the shield is that shield beats move. That's, like, the relevant part is that if you can shield before their thing hits you, you're not in their threat range. That is the sentiment, right? That's, like, all that matters. There's no extrapolating that needs to be done. It's just, that's, like, the core claim. And I think the only reason why any of this is important is that this is what, like, in terms of what we were talking about initially, is this establishes, like, how Melee is played. And then once you get past that point, once you've established all the character's threat ranges, then you can decide, okay, well, what does my character do to either put them inside my threat range or to avoid the opponent's threat range? And that's where you get situations. And, you know, that's where you get mix-ups. And mix-ups have an inherent, you know, I guess if I had to define a mix-up right now, that would provide it value in the situations. A mix-up is an unreactable position where someone is, essentially the result is someone is getting hit. That is, like, how I would define it. And thus,
where someone gets, so a mix-up is an unreactable position where someone gets hit.
Yeah, and if, you know, to give an example is, you're standing within Fox's threat range, running Shine, and he dashes forward and running Shines. And you think he's going to dash back. And so you dash forward, but his running shine hits you. That's just like a mix-up, right? That is like, a just the classic mix-up, whatever, right?
Right.
And and that's like, it's relevant to define what a mix-up is, because if we know what a mix-up is, we understand that it's unreactable. We could see situations within Melee, determine, was this a thing that I did something on reaction to, and that like me reacting to it, or it's not that you did something on react, it's that can I react to this thing and make a decision that will be consistent every single time, which means it's reactable, or is this a situation where I do not have enough time to see anything and I have to make a decision preemptively to hit them, right? And that is like, then you define that, and then you get to like, I can flesh out these situations holistically and have a greater understanding and play them in more varied ways. Like that's like the line that you go down.
Is that what makes unreactable mix-ups so threatening? Is that like the way you play around them is you acknowledge that they exist, and like you can't prime yourself for them.
Yeah, what makes them threatening is you can't react. Right. You're gonna if you don't.
You can understand but the top level play obviously implicitly acknowledges that these mix-ups exist and play around these mix-ups, right? Okay.
Yeah, and they have varied ways that they play them that provide different value, or provides value in different ways regarding like risk reward stuff, right?
Would you say the biggest way that these mix-ups are played around are just by like positioning and making sure that like by principle accepting that, hey, I've been hit here before in a way that's unreactable. I need to make sure that if we're interacting, we don't interact in this particular spot.
Well, no, because a mix-up doesn't mean that you get hit. A mix-up just means that
someone gets hit.
It means that it's an unreactable situation, right? And so it's like you just have to make a relevant decision. You could decide you could have a Marth standing still and a Fox standing still, and the Fox is gonna be like, I'm gonna do a dash forward full approaching drill as fast as possible, and there's a mix-up there that happens because you're playing in an unreactable
lower
range.
level than punish, right? Like the decision, like even on a movement level, there are mix-ups, right? Like, oh, I'm gonna like the Marth thinks I'm gonna dash forward, but I dash forward and go to the platform instead.
Well, it's the sentiment that what makes the mix-up is that you're in the initial position, that you doing dash forward, nothing you do out of that is reactable. They can't, like, before it gets hit. Like, if a Marth is at the point where, like, Fox, using threat ranges as the baseline, where Fox's running shine hits, if he sees you dash forward, he can't, like, decide, oh, man, or if he's at, like, the edge of it, he can't be like...
So you can't decide to change your mind once the mix-up is happening.
No, you just have to, you have to see that the situation is the case based off spacing / positioning, and decide, okay, I'm going to make this type of decision that beats these things, right? And I think it'll probably be valuable at this point if we're talking about developing understanding of mix-ups and like how to think of them. But I could just pick a random Fox match, Fox SSPM,
I'm down.
And then I will simply pick a situation I see, and
call out the mix-up.
Talk. We could talk about the mix-up, and then we could talk about what the other things that could happen in the mix-up, why the mix-up worked, and it'll be super simple. It's just, I simply just need to say, pick a random situation. And I'm going to click to this point in the match.
It doesn't matter the context is what you're trying to get at, right? They're always going to happen.
Yep. Mix-ups are just...
an inherent, like, element of the game that you have to honor.
Let me see if I could find one that would be easy to understand. Boom. Okay, cool. Marth jumping is a pretty simple one. Not simple, but a pretty common one. Okay, Fox is dash dancing over here. He sees the Marth jump. The part of this that makes it, or that could potentially make it a mix-up, if you were in this position, since you're already spaced far enough to where you can't get hit by the fair, it's not that you are engaged in the mix-up, but you can choose to engage in the mix-up. And so, if you were to dash forward, right? So I guess at this point, Cody decided to play the mix-up of, okay, I think he's going to, fair and land, and I'm going to space outside of it or whatever.
Right. So Cody thought Zane was going to drift forward fair here after the.
Well, he just it's that he. I guess it's not that he thought he was going to fair. It's that he he just did a thing that would guaranteed have him outside of his threat range, and then he reacted to the fact that he wavelanded, and now this is a true mix-up. They're engaged in a mix-up. Cody's like, okay, I saw him waveland, he's in my threat range, I'm going to do something to potentially hit him, and he's like, I'm going to nair him, like he meant to nair, he did not mean to fucking laser.
He did nair.
Actually, no, he did that laser intentionally, but...
You think he tried to land on the platform with laser?
Well, he did the laser intentionally because he read... Yeah. So this is another part of the mix-up that when he was aggressive, Cody specifically played the part of the mix-up where he read Zane doing waveland down into shield. And this is he can't react to any of this. And if he did this laser and Zane did shield, you get true shield pressure. You get true like laser grab.
Because laser's positive or whatever.
Yeah, laser doesn't have.
Yeah,
It has
plus
4 frames of
1 or
landing
something.
lag. Yeah, he would just like get laser grab or like some sort of shield pressure, and that's like the mix-up. And there's other ways this could have played out. Cody could have been like, "Oh, I see him waveland. I think he's gonna waveland forward. I'm gonna just move all the way back, and I think he's gonna like waveland forward off the platform. I'm gonna move back and give him space. There's, I'm gonna see that he waveland on the platform, and I'm gonna think that he's not going to shield. I'm going to do full hop bear and try and pressure him, or I'm going to see him waveland on the platform and I'm going to like read that he's going to do dash back shield.
I need to try different things. He wasn't getting at I need to approach him differently. I need to play mix-ups like
the sentiment is that you have to play the mix-ups that you get put in different ways. Like you can't do the same thing because it's like
the mix-ups you are put in. Put in different ways. Otherwise, your opponent will capitalize on it. Right?
Yeah, you can't play the situation the same way every time. Situations are just inherently different, and people like are able to make different decisions.
Ways. Otherwise, you will fall. Yeah. Goodbye. That makes a lot of sense. Yeah. If someone like that, I feel like that's very interesting because I noticed that as the games go on, I get farmed harder.
Yeah.
Even though I'm not playing worse.
Yeah, they're just seeing that you do a thing. Oh look, we have the exact same position. Funnily enough, Zane jumps.
Yeah.
Cody gives him space. So Cody sees that he double jumps and is like, okay, I'm gonna play around it. And this time he goes for a bear, which would hit something explicitly different from what he thought would happen last time. Last time, he thought Zane was going to do waveland down, shield. This time, he thought Zane was going to waveland in any capacity and not shield, right? And if he didn't shield, the bear would have hit. And there's nothing, like, right? And that's just the case. And, like, Zane made this decision to both to double jump and to shield preemptively. This is all preemptive. He didn't see Cody do anything except the fact that Cody was at this point, like, he was on the stage, right?
So the implication of that is that it's entirely committal, right? It's like he does a double jump, that's a commitment, and then he's holding shield.
Yeah, and I guess it's not that necessarily that they're commitments, but it's like what makes them a commitment, right, is that you can technically be getting hit because it's in a mix-up, right? It is like
I see what you're saying.
Like what if like instead of giving him space initially, right, where Cody's all the way back, what if Cody was like, I'm reading the double jump, and he just does full hop nair. Yeah. No, he just literally full hop nairs instantly, and that would hit it. Like, and that is the mix-up. It is that like there's so many ways that these things could play out, and both these players are making decisions completely preemptively. Or if they, in this case, Cody decided to react to the double jump, and then in that case, he played the mix-up afterward, right? Where it's like after the waveland that he thought
so then
Zane
you
was
can play a mix-up preemptively. And you have to play a mix-up preemptively, and that's what.
Well, it's not a mix-up is preemptive, but you can choose. You can choose which mix-ups you engage in if you're reacting. That's the thing. And so it's like
that's big, yeah.
Yeah, right. And so it's like we look at this position.
Like you can be like, I think my opponent is gonna try to play a mix-up on me. Therefore, I am not going to engage here.
Well, a mix-up. It's not the. Well, what makes the mix-up like a thing is like the. It is the spacing. That's the relevant factor. And so in this case, it's not that Cody was like, oh, I'm going to get... It's like Cody was like, I am at this spacing where there isn't a mix-up present, and I don't want to like deal with it. And I want to see what... At least some part of what Zane does before I make like some sort of aggressive... Or like some sort of decision. And so he like took in more information, and then he played a different mix-up. Is it like clear that like, for example, Cody deciding to hit Zane during the double jump is an explicitly different mix-up than him hitting Zane after the waveland, after seeing him double jump? One of them he checked if he double jumped, and the other one he did not check. But there are two different situations because we're at two different stages within the game, right?
So even though the same mix-up just happened twice, Cody played it different immediately.
Well, it's not. It's the same position.
The same position, different mix-up. Sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. Right.
There's different mix-ups that were played.
So there are different mix-ups based on position and spacing.
Yeah.
Okay.
That is, and the position The position / spacing is what makes a thing a mix-up, right? But like, I mean, also threat range from the given position also changes like whether something would be a mix-up or not, and like these are all the like factors that we have to like look at. And so I guess we could like, I think Fox Marth is not a good. I want something slightly more like streamlined. I need something super fucking. It's not about the punish. I just need something that makes it really clear that like that there is a specific situation being played out, and that is like just the case. We could pick Armada left, and it'll be super obvious with these two.
This is 2015.
Oh man, I just saw a mix up instantly.
Yeah, it happened immediately, right?
So no, it's not even that. It's literally what happened right before. It literally was not even that. It is this. This is a mix up. They don't. By the time like Armada running shine in this exact spot is like Leffen can't tell what like Armada's gonna choose to do because Armada could. All he knows is Armada's dashing. Armada could choose to do dash forward, short hop, fade back drill, dash forward, rising full hop. He could technically dash back. I don't think he would in this position. He could dash forward, wave dash down. He could dash forward, running like keep running and running shine. He could choose to go for like this is like a mix up. This is a spacing. This is a thing where they're both engaged and they're playing in an unreactable way. And Leffen's like, okay, I think he's gonna keep going forward. And I'm gonna like dash dance and try and play reactively.
It's crazy fascinating that the first interaction of a game is a mix-up.
Well, that's how it is, right?
No, I mean that's true, right? Like you choose. Oh, I'm gonna choose to dash towards this. I'm gonna choose to go to the platform.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's an interesting. I'm just like reframing my mindset.
Yeah, and Armada, the part of the mix-up that he plays is something that you can do in Melee a lot. That is good. Is that when you see people dash forward and you like. Let's go back to the first time he dashes. You see them dash forward, you could intercept them. So if Leffen wanted to play the mix-up where he read Armada running forward, Leffen would do something like dash forward drill or dash forward up smash or dash forward grab, and that would beat Armada doing dash, just run forward for like running shine or maybe run up crouch. And that is like a part of the mix-up, right? And then like, Armada was like, I'm going to read that, and he does wave dash back. And if Leffen did any of those things, like the drill or
he would be in lag and
or the grab or the up smash.
The idea is that you have to properly recognize, or like you have to.
Well, the idea is that they're picking things, like they're clearly thinking things are going to happen, and they're making these decisions preemptively. That is all that I'm really trying to say. That is like the important part, and I'm pointing out what parts of the mix-up that they're each deciding.
Recognize when you're in you have to know when you're in a mix-up. Pretty much, whenever a mix-up is happening. Like a big skill is knowing that you are in a mix-up.
Yeah, you're in a mix-up, and then you can make a decision accordingly. Oh, look, another mix-up just happened.
Insight you've given me before, I think I remember. Right, is like you don't know when you're in a mix-up, which is good. Yeah, this is
Yeah, and we could look at this next situation. Boom, this is technically was a mix-up. Leffen does the drill over a specific timing of dash forward. Armada comes in at a different timing. They end up close like this, and guess what? This spacing, Armada's like, I think Leffen is going to wave dash forward or roll out of shield, and I'm going to cover that. And Leffen's like, I think Armada's going to like shine or do like an aerial. And guess what? Armada doesn't do the shine or the aerial, and Leffen's fine. He gets to wave dash back, he tries to read something, and then Armada goes for the running shine, and then he whiffs because Leffen didn't do the thing he thought he did. But it's clear that they had intention behind them, and that they were playing a mix-up. Like, that is what is important, is that there's intention behind them, and they were playing a relevant mix-up in a way that made sense. Both their decisions, like, clearly covered something, right? And that is, like, what's important.
Right, okay.
I mean, another mix-up, literally happens right after.
He tries to do dash or JC grab, thinking that Armada's going to get up.
No, this is the mix-up. After this. This is a situation, too. Leffen wave dashes back at this spacing, and Leffen's running forward. Armada's like, I don't know what he's gonna do. I know he's dashing forward, and he thinks that.
Leffen does a running shine.
And Leffen does a running shine, and it's like, well, maybe Armada thought that Leffen was gonna wave dash forward, wave dash down. Maybe he thought Leffen was gonna dash dance, right? But it's like the sentiment that was unreactable, and that they both thought something was gonna happen.
So you can both be in an unreactable mix-up, especially in spacey mirror, right?
Yeah, it's not like in general, mix-ups are it's unreactable for everyone. It is unreactable, and you're both guessing.
Interesting.
There is no like it is just unreactable. It's not like a, oh, I
It's
can't
just
see, but they
both.
can.
Nobody can do any. Nobody can. Yeah. Okay. All
Well,
right.
yeah, because it's like if they could, if one of them could react, it wouldn't be a mix-up. You'd just get
Right.
hit
It
for
would
it,
be.
right?
Yeah. It would be a one-sided punish.
Yeah, you just see that they
Yeah.
did the thing. It's like if a Marth forward smashes and you're outside of the hit, like the threat range of it, it's not a mix-up. He's just forward smashing, and you're gonna run up and up smash him or run up and grab him, right? That's not a mix-up.
Right.
He's just
You're just purely reacting to end lag of something.
yeah, you're just punishing them, right? If it's
Right.
right, and there are positions where like this is where like threat ranges, I guess, come into play where characters have different threat ranges, and some threat ranges are longer than others, right? And like if you know you're like technically from your perspective, you could feel like you're doing something that like well, it's just that like it is not like sure maybe only one side can react in some positions, but that's not like a mix up then. That's just like a punish. And so it's like an example of this is like another example, I guess, is there's characters like Fox and Marth who have has a longer threat range, and if a Fox is inside the Marth's threat range and the Fox like does something laggy like an up smash, the Marth just gets to hit it or whatever. It's like the sentiment is that a mix up means that both characters are guessing and that they both are picking things preemptively to like be a specific option.
What's important is that both people are guessing and both parties have an unreactable situation.
Yes. Like, and that will be the case if you're both playing preemptively and you're both like at a point where you could both hit each other. It's just like logically the conclusion would be right. Like,
and so better players, if you do the same mix up twice, better or even more, not like I mean twice is not my point. Like more than once, I guess. Yes, technically twice, but like they will look out for that mix up, and then all of a sudden you're getting punished based on a read, right?
Yeah, sure, yeah, like that is gonna be the case. I don't know if necessarily like
not in this. I'm not. I'm just like thinking. I don't know. I'm just thinking out loud.
Yeah, like if you do the same thing over and over, people will pick up on it, and that's like truth, right? That's just like gonna happen. And that like I guess why having a varied way you play interactions out is important, right? But yeah, I mean another mix up, boom. Right here, after Armada misses the upper, this is a mix up. They're both engaged. They're both engaged in a situation. They both, they could both pick a thing that would hit the other person, right? Like Leffen could do full hop rising bear, and Armada's close enough to get hit by it. Armada could do drop through bear.
Reaction.
Well, yeah, he'd be picking preemptively because he's reacting to the situation. I guess something that's important about mix-ups is to realize when you are playing a mix-up out, what happens is you react to the situation, understand it's a mix-up, understand the spacing, and then pick your decision, right?
Yeah.
That is like where a reaction happens within a mix-up, generally. I mean, if you look at this situation, Armada's like, okay, well, I don't think Leffen's gonna immediately try and hit me. I'm gonna do run off, and then now that he, there's been time between him running off and him landing, and he's reacted to the new position. He's like, oh, we're at this spacing and he's shielding. I'm reading him jumping in some capacity, and I'm gonna nair. Oh, boom. Leffen like wave dash back and had bad defense or whatever, right? And that's like Armada, like the way Armada played the mix-up out ended up working. And from Leffen's perspective, it's like Leffen's like, Armada could just drop through bear, and I don't want to I want to defend against that.
Punish,
and so I'm going to shield.
Punish shield drop back air or whatever. Yeah.
And then Leffen also reacts to his new position. He sees Armada run off, and he's like, I'm going to wave dash back, right? And he thinks that Armada, when he does the wave dash back, he thinks Armada is going to like hold this space and not try and hit him, right? And that's the mix. That is the sentiment of each of these decisions. And this is like, this is kind of what I was talking about earlier in the lesson, where it's like you have to you can have the overarching game plan, and that's good, but you have to know all the things that happen within it precisely. And I think it's pretty evident that I am whatever skill level I am, and I'm able to sit here and pick we've looked at literally every mix-up that has happened.
You can call them out word for interaction for an interaction, intent per player. Right?
Yeah, like I know when the situation happens. I know the frame advantage implications of it. I know what each player is trying to do, and all the things that they like.
This is a good framework for analyzing what other players' mix-ups are, because I'm sure there are it's just like everything else in Melee. It's a skill. It's a spectrum. There's plenty of things to pick up and look. But like if I were to look back on a different set just on my own, I would say, okay, well this is a mix up because this X player had Y intent and Z player had uh you know what I mean,
Well,
right?
yeah, it's just that like you're like looking and seeing that things within the situation are a certain way, and then you're like, well, this person's like. I guess it's not important necessarily that like, well, the important part of being able to tell their intentions just by looking at it isn't like it's that you understand the situation. That is the important part. I can do this because I understand these situations and I know what both of them could be looking for. And it's like that's what you're trying to like work out when you like see mix-ups or unreactable positions, and then if you were to decide like you're going to do something, how would you decide, what would you decide, why would you decide it, and like or make that decision, and like what would make that relevant,
there's
right?
there's multiple layers of questions you need to ask yourself
Yeah, you
if
have to
you were
flesh
in
everything out, right? It's like
right.
it's
Okay.
like if I fucking you sent me a mix up, right? If you're like, I want to send you this clip, I'm not really sure what to do. I could guarantee tell you every single decision, literally every single decision, even ones that are irrelevant, right? Even ones that are random or don't make sense. I could tell you every single decision that you could make within that position in detail and why. And that's like a skill that you need. Like, not every top player has that skill.
That's game knowledge in itself, right?
Yeah, and that's what makes like that's where like I can play these mix-ups in varied ways comes from. Because if you know how to play, if you know the implications in terms of like what you're trying to beat and risk reward of every aspect of a mix-up, you can just play the situation well, right?
Yeah,
because it's like
let me write that. That's you're speaking gold right there. You know the implications of every possible decision you can make, and the intention of your opponent. You can just always play the situation well.
Intention of your opponent doesn't really matter until like after the point, because that is like they've made the mix up.
Okay,
But
so
it's
sorry,
like,
can you repeat that one more? So if you know the implications of every possible decision you can make.
yeah, if you know every decision, every possible decision you could make and why you would make them, then you are just inherently able to play mix-ups better, right? Just because you have the knowledge to do all the different things, right?
Right. Okay.
And it's like the value of doing something like that, like I guess it's like when you know all the outcomes, you can then you get to the point where you could decide what are the things, like you could start judging risk reward. And so we look at this position that we just looked at. In terms of risk reward, we look at the things that the potential. Armada doing a drop through bear in this position. We look at the risk reward. Well,
he could get shield grabbed.
Well, it's like what we have to think about what the bear beats first, I guess. And so it's like, what does the bear hit? It hits Leffen jumping. It hits Leffen standing still.
It hits drop shield.
It hits, yeah. Well, we also, I guess we don't know that Leffen's even shielding at this point, right?
Like, that's the assumption I think I have a problem with. I make as a player is like, these players I'm reacting because I'm pausing the game and saying, oh, well, this is happening. But that's not happening in the moment for the players.
Well, it's just that, I'm going to pause at the point where I see that the situation's happened, and if we go back 15 frames, it will not be, like, the fact that Leffen's shielding. It's not like, that's like, Leffen's shielding was also a part of, like, a decision he would make in the mix-up, right? Remember how when I talked about initially, him doing the shield beat the, drop through bear, right? And that implies that if he made that decision to beat this part of the mix-up, that it's also preemptive, right? And so it's like, we don't know that if we're looking at this from Armada's perspective, all I know at this point is that I'm actionable and that Leffen fell off the platform, right? That's all we know. This screenshot has no, like, value. This isn't the important part. The important part is that we know that this is like however many frames back. We know that this is happening. We know that I'm landing or Armada,
and he's landing.
Yeah, we're Armada in this case. We know that we're landing on the platform and that he's doing the shield fall off animation. Right?
But it's ambiguous as to where he's landing and what he's gonna do after.
Where he's landing is set, but what he's gonna do after is that is where the mix-up comes in, right? And so it's like we look at this. This is I know that Leffen's gonna end up shielding below me, and that's all I know. Not shielding below. I know that he's going to end up on the floor below him. He doesn't need to shield, and that's all the information I have. And so we go back to the absolute present, where there's like at the time where a decision would be made. We go back to drop through bear. We look at what drop through bear beats. It beats Leffen standing still. It beats him jumping. It beats him. It hits him crouching. It doesn't beat him crouching because you can CC it. And then like if Leffen dash dances right here specifically, or like stays in this range or this range, while not shielding, it hits, right? And those are the things that bear beats. That's all. And then now we think, well, what does it lose to? It loses to him shielding. It loses to him CCing. It loses to him dashing all the way back and wave dashing down right here. It loses to Leffen immediately like turn around up tilting and stuff shielding, and that's it. And so it's like, okay, well, if you look at like the likelihood of each thing, I feel like it's pretty likely for Leffen to shield because it's an awkward position, right? He fell off the platform and he's unsure what's happening.
Like you mentioned before, he's in a position where he did something offensive and is now it's his time to it's defense mode, right?
Well, we're looking at like Leffen because
sorry, you're right.
And so it's not, now that we look at this perspective from Leffen, because we're talking about like what he would be doing
at the shield.
And so we're like, well, what do I want to like? If I know what's going to happen, it's like, okay, well, this is an awkward position. I fell off the ledge of the platform. I'm not really sure. I'm going to like defend myself, and that's like. It's not unreasonable to think that that's like a common thing, but off the basis that like the situation was inherently confusing prior, and now we're in like a new one that we're unsure about. And so then we're Armada thinking of Leffen. It's like, okay, Leffen's probably going to see it that way, right? And so then it's like, okay, well, shield is more likely than the other decisions. Then it's really like the risk reward on the bear is bad because of that like likelihood of decision making.
And so therefore he chooses to run off.
Yeah, therefore he chooses, I'm going to play a different part of the mix-up.
Okay, right. And right. Okay. So he then made. So then we've gone through the analysis of the risk reward, and Armada's decision is determined to not engage in that situation at all.
Yeah, we look at the risk reward of each, and we see the risk reward of shield's pretty good because it's pretty hard to get hit for shielding. You're just not going to get hit.
There's a good chance you're going to get you might get a shield grab, get a counter hit, right?
Yeah, it's like you also get to defend yourself. That's the important part. You defend yourself. Shield grab, Shadow Shield comes after. You don't want to get hit, right? That's the important. Not getting hit is.
You don't even need to think about shield grab or Shadow Shield until you've seen that they're trying to hit you.
Yeah, right. And so it's like I'm shielding because I don't want to get hit, and it's reasonable risk reward because there's not really anything that hits shield other than Armada literally doing empty land turnaround grab, which is unreactable, but like that is the only thing, right, that you'd be scared of, and that's a really specific thing. It also loses to you. If you were to attack in any regard, you'd hit him falling or trying to grab, right, in this mix-up position. And so that's why
smash out of shield, nair out of shield, short hop backer, etc. Right?
Whatever, yeah. And that's why it's like, okay, well, if him trying to do that one specific option that beats me shielding loses to me doing anything else, then it's like, I think shield has good risk reward. And Armada understands that and is like, I'm not going to do something that has bad risk reward, which would be the bear, going into the most likely thing, or the thing that has the best risk reward, right? And so he runs off, and then there's a new situation that happens right now, which is this position. Technically, it would stem from seeing Armada dash forward, right? But this is the situation that occurs because they saw Leffen or Armada dash forward. And then Leffen's like, okay, I know that he's dashing, and I think he's going to like run off bear or do something that ends up in this vicinity. Thus, I'm going to wave dash back, right? But
okay, right, because and his prediction is correct because Armada then goes for overshoot nair. Right?
Well, no, it would be the part that he was looking for something specifically. So it's like I guess what he was looking for is that he would assume that Armada would run off. He saw that Armada would run off, and he assumed that Armada would like do something that stays here. He would dash dance here. He would stand still. He'd do full hop. He'd dash dance, right? It's like he would do something that would stay there, and Leffen thought that would happen, and so he wave dash back. But Armada was like, I think that Leffen is gonna wave dash back, right?
Right. Okay, so there's where levels come in.
Yeah,
right?
and this is like a layered mix-up. Technically, Armada is playing on a slightly higher layer where he does a thing that like
knowing that Leffen wants to punish a thing that he's already doing.
Well, the layer of it comes from the fact that like Armada picked a decision that like how to explain that it was layered, where it was like it presented information to Leffen that he used to make a decision right? But the fact that Armada still had the opportunity to pick a decision after the initial decision, which would be dashing off, right? To like do something that still hits him. That is like layers come from the fact that like within like situations there are small parts that you could react to, and that there are assumptions that you'd make based off what you see, and the layer would come from like doing something that interacts well with like the assumption that they'd make about the situation. And I don't think that's like necessarily even worth thinking about because you have to learn how.
I have to recognize that I'm in a mix-up first.
Yeah, you have to
Like,
know
no
everything about layer
oh,
one.
Yeah, no, I agree. I 100% agree. It's important, but I agree. And I'll just keep that in the back of my head until I have a better mastery of the concept. But the idea, no, I see what you're getting.
Yeah, and that is the important part with this is that like there's a situation happening and you're picking something that like relevantly like engages with something likely, and you're taking risk reward into account or whatever. And I feel like at this point you just kind of have to do that for every situation and decide all the different mix-ups you could pick that have good risk reward or whatever.
Right. And that's just gonna be a grind that I need to learn on my own.
Yeah,
and
it's
like,
just
this is a level that I need to like, and then once like I can come back to you in a month, and maybe I'll have a better grasp of this. But this is definitely a useful lesson for me because I had a lot of trouble understanding what Cactus really meant by that.
Yeah, it's just he does more mix-ups. He does more like decisions in the mix-ups he plays, and that's like it. And you have to build up from we started from the ground up, from threat ranges to mix-ups to risk reward, and then you'll have other things like defenses, etc., whatever. And that is just like the natural like ladder of progression. And does that all like make sense?
Yeah, no. This was really helpful. This was one of the last things that I felt like really wasn't concrete in my brain. I didn't have a good like framework for thinking about it because it was just like, oh, well, I'm gonna guess what this person wants to do, and that's what I thought what a mix-up was. I hadn't I had some sort of formulated idea of like why people would do things, but I hadn't considered the idea that both players are in a spot where they can't react.
Yeah, that is
in my head. I was like, a mix was like, oh, this player is mixing this other player, but it's both players are in the mix.
Yeah,
right.
It's like you can mix people up by picking something that they would not expect
but that's
in a
not
mix-up.
A mix-up.
Well, it's that it is a mix-up, but it's that mixing someone up is doing something that was surprising to the opponent that outplayed them. It has no value in defining a mix-up. It's just like a saying that people have for like, oh, you got fucked.
It's like, oh, I got mixed. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just it's a social thing more so than like has any impact on like.
That's totally
game.
totally makes sense.
Yeah.
All right.
Okay.
Well, I appreciate. I'm gonna try my best at main stage to apply it. It's hard to. You always gotta take a hit when you're applying something new.
Yeah. It's just how it be.
But if I beat Sunsei, I'll let you know. Oh, actually, no. I think pools changed, so I don't think I play Sunsei.
Yeah. Okay.
I appreciate good lesson. I will come back to you, and I think starting in either February or like January, I think I'm moving up to 2 a month.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I mean,
appreciate it, man.
Yeah, no problem. And
good
sounds
lessons.
good.
I just talking with you for an hour has been beyond like the most valuable asset in just like thinking about the game.
Oh, I'm glad. I've been able to help.
Yeah.
Help build your perspective.
Well, because you give me concrete idea. A lot of Melee is really hard to teach because it's so fucking abstract.
Yeah.
It's not that it's abstract. It's that it's incredibly
it's expansive.
Verbose. It's verbose.
Yeah.
You can't be like, yo, can you any tips? And like there's the classic parable of a new player asking a top player after this. And, oh, hey, any tips? And you're like, yeah.
Yeah. There's just a lot. There's just a lot.
Yeah. Oh man. All right. Well, I'll see you probably pretty soon.
Yeah.
Just DM me the Calendarly or whatever the fuck.
Yeah. I'm gonna go through that probably today. I meant to do it earlier, but I've been busy than a hoe.
No problem. Busier than
I've been busy as.
Are you going to Blinkerton?
Okay, Okay, well, cool. Yeah, I'll message that to you. Good luck at main stage and
All right.
stuff.
Thank you, man.
Yeah, I'll talk to
Good
you
talk.
later.
Appreciate you.
Yeah, no problem.
Bye bye.
Peace.